Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds, and I'm here with Keith, co-star of my upcoming film, If, only in theaters May 17th. Do you want to tell people the big news? All right, I'll do it. Sign up now and you'll get unlimited for $15 a month and 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan on us. MintMobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 equivalent to $15 per month. Unlimited over 40 gigabytes per month. Face lower speeds. Videos at 480p. Active Mint customers by 531.24 get 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan. Auto renews after 6 months. Offer ends May 31st, 2024. Separate Paramount Plus registration required. Terms and conditions apply if rated PG.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Hey there, it's Michelle Norris. I'm host of a podcast called Your Mama's Kitchen. When I travel, I'm usually looking for a way to find a taste of home when I'm not at home. And one of the things I love to do when I am at home is entertain. And Airbnb allows me to do that. When I was in California recently, I rented a house that had a great kitchen. And when we were sitting around the table, we were all thinking, we're in someone else's house. Someone could be in all of our homes as well. If you have a home, but you're not always at home, you have an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council. You had thought about taking early retirement, hadn't you? But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't. And
why not?
Because I really wasn't ready. I was. If I was going because I was cross, not because I really wanted to go.
Do you know what, Mary? I was driving out here to Allenwood today and thinking about our guest and, just thinking about how important friendship is. We talk about it a good bit. You and I are good pals. And the fact that kind of friends are there for you in the good times and the bad times and through thick and thin.
Yeah, aren't they though?
It's true.
Very important. I hope you and your best friend who's sitting on the other side of this table will still be best friends at the end of this interview, because she'll be judging you against how you treated Anne Doyle.
I know.
All you girls together in RTE. So there's loads of different kinds of friends. I know the people. I think one of the remarkable things is the people that you don't see from one year's end to the next, and when you do see them, the years between just evaporate. Yes. Nobody makes anything of them, and on you go. You pick up from where you left off. It's wonderful. So I think that's one of the great gifts in life, and I think the older I get, I have to say the friendships mean more and more and more, don't they?
They really do, and they do have to be nurtured.
You have to work with them, don't you? Yeah, we do, and you're the same, Eileen. We do. We work on our friendship, and we make sure that we have our few days away together. That's and right. Our lunches and our coffees and our chats.
Yeah. Well, I can't be too gushy about.
I'm going to keep a queer eye on you today now.
Because she'd kill me, you are so right. But Eileen has been a dear friend of mine for more than 40 years. We met on Eileen's first day in RTE in 1979. I had joined the year before. Massive GAA fan, her dad Mick Dunne set up the All Stars in 71. But since Eileen joined RTE as a news presenter, she's covered some of the biggest stories in the past 4 decades. Multiple general elections, historic referendum campaigns, the talks leading to the Good Friday Agreement, and one, Mary, that I know you certainly will relate to. That was the visit of Queen Elizabeth to Ireland.
Remember it well. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, you're very welcome, Eileen. It's great to have you here at Allenwood. But I'm just realising, you and I started in RTE the same time too. I started in 79.
Well, I was part-time now for a year because I had just come back from France, and I was actually doing what was then called the HDIP. So I was teaching part-time, I was going to lectures, and I started part-time as an announcer with Mary. Mm-hmm. We did our training course together. The radio training course.
Mary was already the TV training course. So we must have come in around the same time.
Yeah. But I didn't go over to the newsroom then till 84, so I was in the radio centre until 1984.
And those training courses were not for the faint-hearted, sure they weren't.
Bridget Kilfeather and Una Sheehy.
They were boot camp.
They were boot camp.
They were boot camp.
I just remember, Bridget, when I did my, the late, great Bridget Kilfeather, when I did my audition, my initial audition, I was in France and the ad went into the paper for continuity announcer, radio announcers. But Daddy, there was a big postal strike in Ireland, 1978, 79. And Daddy said, I'll stick in an application form. I'll post one over to you, but in case it doesn't make it back, I'll do one here. And I always thought his application form got me the audition anyway, because every fetch, every concert, everything I ever did was down on it. Every medal I ever won, whereas I just filled it out and not sent it back. But when I came in to do that audition, it was Bridget Kilfeather. I was home at Easter and there was an ad on the radio. Anyone who hadn't been contacted, please get in touch. And so I was auditioned. And I remember Bridget Kilfeather just sitting back in the chair and looking at me and saying, oh my God, you're so young. I was going to be 21 that month. I thought, okay, that's it. They gave me the audition, but that's it now. That's the end of it. So that was my first encounter with Bridget.
And do you remember her title in RTE? Head of Speech Standards.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's right. That's why it was boot
when
camp.
there were speech standards.
And there were speech standards.
There were no new initiatives in those days.
No.
Oh God,
Yeah.
no. There was a kind of not a tribe exactly, but there were a cohort of people like her whose job it was to put manners on us.
And you get a little note into your pigeonhole if you had mispronounced something, if you were doing an announcement. I was a continuity announcer, but you get them. That's how I always say I pronounce film correctly, because I used to call it film.
And you got
F-I-L-U-M.
Yeah.
Well, at least you were on radio. You didn't get what I got, which wasn't one of them. But my mother would ring me up after every programme I did saying, did you have to wear that oil red jacket again? Have you nothing else to wear?
No, my
mother
did too. My mother's line is, do you see that jacket I done you the other night? Yeah? Doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, they went to the same Bridget school, those two. They did. They went to the same school for standards.
You might have paid a couple of €100 for it, like,
sartorial standards.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, I mean, it's remarkable to think of your dad. You know, everybody still remembers him, but he's dead a long time now, and I can't believe it. How many years is your dad dead now?
22.
Gosh, seems. I can hear his voice in my head.
Yeah. But you must have been, I suppose, reared to the GAA, given the job that your dad was doing. Were you out every Sunday?
Out every Sunday. I always told the story.
And to broadcasting.
And to broadcasting, but less so. Now, he was in the Irish Press when I was small. He only moved to RTE in 1970. I used to, he got sick of me telling the story. So our Sunday drive was all over the country. I don't think I was up the Dublin Mountains until I was about 21, but I knew every GAA pitch in the country. And we'd all go and we'd possibly take a picnic. And so you could be in Clonus this week for the Ulster final, and you'd be in Killarney next week for the Munster final, and Thurles. And he always got into the car park. So you brought the picnic and you'd meet all the other families then, like if we were up north, we'd be meeting the McCartans and the O'Neills and all of those, and then possibly stop for a meal on the way back. That was kind of the day out.
And would you get into the box with him?
If you were on your own, yes, because he liked a note taker. Yeah.
So what one of the note taking meant? Keeping an eye on the scores,
keeping the number of frees, and all that kind of. He had a system, so you had to follow the very meticulous man. So you had a system, and you had to follow the system.
Yeah, I heard that. Is it right that your first interview for the 6-1 News was with Gay Byrne?
That's right, yeah.
How did that happen?
Because he wrote a book.
He wrote a book. So you were interviewing him about the book? About
the book, yeah.
Right.
And he had a soft spot for me, it has to be said. He always liked me, and I knew that. And I, one summer that he was gone off on holidays, I was to kind of stand in, and it was like an extended playback. We used to play a whole movement from a symphony or an act from a play, or, a big extract, a big interview, rather than the snippets that can be on playback, whatever. It ran for 2 hours in the morning, and John Cadden produced it, who was the producer of the Gay Byrne show. And I kind of reckon I would never have got it without his say-so. He just wouldn't have tolerated it. I was working on the Eurovision Song Contest, whatever year it was. I was down in the Berkeley Court Hotel, and he came in. Deirdre Purcell wrote the book with him. And the two of them came in, and they were coming in to have their lunch to finalise details of the book. And so it was all very exciting. And I was kind of in on that. And then when it happened, it just, I don't know, somebody put in the request, and because it was me, he said yes. And I mean, thinking back, it was probably the worst interview that was ever done, but because he liked me, he tolerated it. He'd have told anyone else where to go, you know.
Were you nervous doing it?
Oh, stop. Petrified.
Really?
Absolutely petrified, yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah.
you don't get nervous, really, particularly. Sure, you don't.
Not really, no. Just I was so in awe of him.
Yeah.
It was a different ball game.
Yeah. But when you were presenting down through the years, you were always had a very calm demeanour. Because when Anne was in, she was talking about the fact that right until the day she left, she would be very, very nervous before going into studio.
She never looked it. Yeah, I heard her. Actually, I heard her. I listened. I was in Barcelona the week it came out over with my son, and I was walking the beach listening to Ms. Doyle. No, I don't suffer badly from now. I mean, Anne, at least we would never have known it by her. But there are some people, and you do know by them. I don't think I could have done it for all those years if I was getting that nervous beforehand. I really don't.
And then the changes that happened within the studio, where you start off with, a camera crew and somebody working the auto cue, and then by the time you finish, you were there on your Sweeney Todd, really, with no camera,
no
camera
cameras,
person.
no floor manager. Just the auto cue, and even in the headline studio, you didn't even have that; you had to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You mentioned there at the very beginning, Eileen, that you were doing your H-dip. And it's funny because our trajectories through life have mirrored each other, haven't they? Because I was teaching as well when I went into
now, Mary
RTE.
McAleese, it has to be said, Mary Kay is a couple of years older than I am. So she...
Okay.
Hang on a minute, she's a couple of years younger than me.
So she's done it all ahead of me. So where are we? So UCD, Irish and French.
That's right.
Worked as tour guides in Dublin Castle. Went to France for a year when we graduated. Came back then and taught a bit, and then went into RTE. Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, that's right.
Marriage, children, grandchildren. I haven't caught up yet.
No, not yet, but you will.
And podcast, I haven't caught up yet.
You taught for a while.
I didn't really. I just did my H-dip, and at the end of that year, then in June 1980, I was offered a contract in RTE. So I was teaching in my old school in Manor House in Raheny, and the nuns offered me a job as well. And all the teachers and staff were saying, get out while you can. Get out. I couldn't believe it.
Really? Nobody was encouraging
Nobody was encouraging me to stay teaching when I had the option of RTE as well. So.
And did you ever, in the early days in RTE, just getting used to the regime, you never thought, oh, here, let me out of here, I'll go back to teaching?
No, the only regret I might have is... when you in those days when you were doing the H-dip, you started teaching in September. The lectures didn't begin until October. You had all your mistakes made in the first 3 weeks.
Yes,
So I would have loved a year as a fully qualified teacher, because I had 2 classes. I had first year and I had second year. The first years were absolute dream. I was teaching them French. They'd never learnt it before. There was a great sense of, at the end of that year, any French they had, I taught them. The second years didn't want to be there. And that was much more difficult. And so I just would have liked to have that little bit more authority, done a full year properly qualified. But that's the only time I think I ever regretted it.
And I know, Eileen, that you went, as you say, to Manor House, and you speak very highly of the education that you got there and the contribution that the nuns made.
Yeah, and not
everybody speaks like that.
No, I know, and even not even my sisters would. We just were lucky, the time we hit it. So I started there in 1970. So I was there between 70 and 75. So it really was kind of the beginning of the whole women's lib and all the rest of it. But these were highly intelligent women, and they just trained us and sent us out to be the best that we could be. Now, in my class was Moy Darty, Eileen O'Toole, who ended up owning the Sunday Business Post, Bridget McManus.
First Secretary Gen.
Yeah.
And she had education, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She was first woman Sec Gen, yeah. So, and there was an artist and there was a doctor and there was a lot of high achievers, but we were certainly encouraged. And even now, some of the girls that worked with us in the newsroom, one of the girls is a couple of years behind, she'd say, no, that wasn't my experience of the nuns. And even, as I say, my sisters would not quite disagree vehemently, but wouldn't be as enthusiastic as I would be. And we kind of all feel the same. I remember we did have a gathering. At our graduation mass, Desiderata was on the back of the mass booklet. And the older I get, the more that means to me.
Yes,
I have to say, I love it. I love it.
You could just touch lucky really in school, can't you? You
Yeah.
get the right mix of good teachers, the right mix of attitudes. You can just be lucky, can't you? Yeah. We were just talking earlier to somebody else who had a bad experience at school.
Yeah.
And it's a relief in a way to hear somebody who had a great experience of school.
Yeah, and a lot more recently than our experiences.
Right.
Yeah. But I have to say, no, I wouldn't have felt that they were encouraging. They made you work hard and that sort of thing. But it was more or less. But then, as you say, I'm older than you. So in my day,
a couple of years.
Don't get above your station.
There'd certainly be
What
that.
order of nuns did
The
you have?
poor servants of the Mother of God.
Oh boy, right. The poor servants of the Mother of God. Right.
I remember seeing Maeve Binchy on the Late too around that time, maybe when I was in 5th year or 6th year, and Maggie Thatcher had just become the leader of the Conservative Party. Maeve Binchy was saying, if she can do it, anyone can do it. No excuses anymore. Get out and do it.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's what I was hearing at school, and that's also what I was hearing at home, because my mother was a civil servant who had to give up work the day she got married.
Did she resent that?
Oh, totally. All her life, yeah.
Amazing.
Until we were old enough and she went back to work.
Oh, she went back to work.
She went back to work, yeah.
Oh.
She worked for a transport company.
My mother was the opposite. She had to give up work when she got married, but she felt that was the way it should be.
Okay.
And she kind of would let that message seep through to me sometimes as well when I was teaching. Anyway.
But she was very supportive, wasn't she? She minded your children for you and everything.
She minded my children,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And she was absolutely gorgeous, and they absolutely adored her, which was
yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
You said also, Eileen, there about visiting your son in Barcelona, and you were listening to Anne on the podcast. And you've also said that getting married didn't change that much, but having a son, Cormac, changed everything. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm always conscious when I start speaking about this, about friends who don't have children. But whether it is life-changing, there is no doubt. Suddenly, you're at the mercy of this scrap. Now, Mary McAleese, I have to tell you, Mary Kennedy was very good to me. I ended up back in hospital 3 weeks after Cormac was born with him. He was sick, not necessarily me. Mary was in the Coombe the same time as I was visiting.
Well, I wasn't having a baby.
No, I know.
It was my niece, Niamh, was born on the same day.
So Niamh and Cormac share a birthday. And so Mary was in and out of the Coombe. But she'd ring me then when I got home and she'd say, how you doing? I'd say, be grand. Give it another couple of weeks so we settle down and be fine. And she knew, and she was the same with the dancing, when to dip in and dip out and back off and leave me alone, or if I needed help or whatever. So it was fantastic. Again, you see, she was ahead of me. She had the experience. But you suddenly, you're just at the mercy of this little scrap, and you have this responsibility. So it's not really about me anymore. It's now about the child or children, because they didn't ask to be brought into the world. I mean, marriage, you make a conscious decision and your partner makes the same decision, but the child ain't making any decisions. So you're totally responsible. So in that way, it made me grow up, I suppose, really.
Yeah, and he's a young man now.
He is. He'll be 29 this year.
How do you feel about him being in Barcelona?
Well, it's not Australia.
Oh gosh, that's the way I'm looking at it. It's only a couple of hours on a plane.
Yeah, 2 hours on a plane.
Yeah. A lot of people are facing the Australian
I
thing
know.
that we're
And I
doing.
think as we get on to, I have a cousin who went over to visit her brother a couple of years ago, and he said, I'm never doing that flight. I'm just not, I won't be able for it. I will never do that flight again. So that, if you end up with people over there and grandchildren and everything, it just must be so hard.
Yeah, because my twins spent time, my son Justin spent a year in Australia at university. And his twin, then she spent 4 or 5 months. And my huge worry the whole time was that they would fall in love with the Australian outdoorsy, sporty life, and or fall in love with an Australian person.
Yeah.
But I really was terrified for that very reason.
Well, now, Cormac's in Barcelona and his partner is Irish, so she's from just down the road, so that's one thing. But the other thing is, what do they come home to? I mean, they've just moved apartment, I was telling you, last weekend. They've got a 5-year lease, which they can break. The apartment they were in, they had a 5-year lease, which they break. They give 30 days notice. The rent is about half what they would pay here. And now they're earning less, but still, they still manage to have a good lifestyle on the money they're earning, compared to even if they had the money when they came home, there ain't no place to rent.
And Spanish sunshine.
And they've no security of tenure,
That's true. And you can see the attraction of places like that, and also of Australia for young people, can't you? that they would want to,
a
take
sense
that
of adventure.
Yeah.
There's a difference, isn't there, between going somewhere in order to explore and to have the freedom of adventure. Mm-hmm. It's an entirely different thing if you feel that you've no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Awful.
It's a nice place to go to visit too, isn't it, Barcelona?
Barcelona, not bad now.
We were talking about you not being nervous doing the live broadcast. You have a long. I shouldn't overemphasize the number of years that you worked in RTE, but a few years ago you had thought about taking early retirement, hadn't you? But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't, and
why not?
Because I really wasn't ready. I was. If I was going because I was cross, not because I really wanted to go.
And what was making you cross?
Just the way that the organisation, the direction it was going in, and things around me, things were changing. Really? And
what was the worst of those things, Eileen? What was the worst?
I just didn't like the drift. I didn't like the way it was going. But we'll kind of park that for obvious reasons with all that has happened since. But when my back was against the wall, I wasn't ready in my head to go. I would have been 60 then. I could have gone, but I wouldn't have had my full service. And I'm really glad I stayed, because I'm really glad I worked through COVID.
Why so?
Because it was genuine public service broadcasting. But also I'd have gone stone crazy if I was sitting at home for the couple of years. Now, it wasn't easy. And those of us who were there were skeleton staff all the time. And every time we went in, particularly in the first couple of weeks and months, like everybody else, we were all scared. Nobody knew what we were dealing with. And every time we went in fairness, there were very good protocols put in place, but they kept changing. And it took us all a while to kind of get used to everything. But then we just went in and got on with it, because that's what you do,
Mm-hmm.
That was a fascinating time to be there, to be the voice that the person at home who hasn't been able to leave their house, whose groceries are being delivered, who doesn't know when they're ever going to get back to work. You were the people who were holding it together. Well, it was actually
amazing. If you remember, you were encouraged to go to the supermarket once a week. No more, really.
That's right.
Go for your shop. And I'd go down on a Saturday or whatever, and I would be besieged from all sides, from people who, like, as you say, hadn't spoken to anybody else all week. They weren't going outside their door. So, how are you coping? Do you have to do your own hair? Do you have to do your own makeup? Yes, all of that. And then I remember one particular Saturday, a chorus of, what would we do without Dr. Leo and Dr. Tony? They were the heroes of the hour.
Weren't they, though?
They were the heroes of the hour at the time.
You felt so safe.
Well, when you were watching what was happening on either side of us, where there was just mayhem for a lot of the time, But it was relentless. Like, it was really, really busy. And we were all having, like, I was having to go in earlier, do extra bulletins because there were fewer people around, all that kind of thing. Then we were getting the story from an Irish point of view, from a medical point of view, from an international point of view. It was just relentless. It was coming at you from all quarters,
But significant to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council.
This is Paige, the co-host of Giggly Squad, and I want to tell you about a company that I've been loving, Olive & June. Olive & June gives you everything that you need for a salon-quality manicure in one box. And if you break it down, it really comes out to $2 a manicure, which is absolutely insane. It's also so easy to get salon-worthy nails at home with Olive & June. The difference between how your nails used to look when you did them yourself and now with the Mani system is a complete game changer. The best thing about Olive & June, too, is it's a quick dry. Dries in about 1 minute, lasts for 5 days, and full coverage in up to 1 to 2 coats. Visit oliveandjune.com/perfectmani20 for 20% off your first system. That's oliveandjune.com/perfectmani20 for 20% off your first system.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Fast forward then 5 years hence, almost, when you did retire and you chose your moment to retire, and you made a most gorgeous parting if you like, speech at the end of the bulletin. You know, that was really lovely, Eileen. Did you just spend time just reflecting?
Yeah, it was only 30 seconds. I didn't want huge fuss. I didn't want a big build up. So I actually left before my 65th birthday. So I caught people on the hop a bit. Not a lot of people knew. But Ray D'Arcy, I suspected, would find out, because I used to read the headlines at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And on the Friday, I actually asked Shane McGowan, will you read the headlines for me? Because you wouldn't know what this fella'd say. And the next thing, I get a phone call from the producer, is it okay if we say something? And I said, for that very reason, I'm not reading it 3 o'clock. So I had kind of said, lads, I don't want anything in the studio or anything like that. I don't care what you do when I'm finished, but I don't want anything, because I still have to read the bulletin. So can I just do it 30 seconds at the end? So with the editor and that, we figured it out, and I just wrote it and I emailed it to him, and he only put it in the system when it was actually gone on the air.
And you can remember it?
I probably can, yeah.
Go on, tell us what. The points you made. One was about retiring from RTE. After
all those years and all the good times, and then I don't know.
I'm not retiring from life.
Oh, I'm not retiring from life. Yes. I'm retiring from RTE, but not from life. Well, sure, look at me since, for God's sake.
Exactly. Taking on the world.
Yes.
But were you emotional doing that?
I probably would have been if I had to go much longer, you know.
Yeah.
But now by this stage, I was ready in my head. And I think COVID taught me that too. I didn't fear retirement after COVID, because my husband works down the west a bit, and after the first lockdown he was gone back to Galway to do Rusnaroon, and he would stay down there rather than be travelling up and down on public transport and all the rest of it. So apart from my mother, when I was off, I was on my own quite a bit during COVID, but I don't have a problem with that. I'm quite happy. And I realised that actually I would be quite happy. So, you know.
Are there any other areas, when you think about RTE and the wonderful career that you had there, that you would have liked to maybe have worked in besides news?
I don't know. I mean, I did Lyric FM for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed that because I love my music. And I also did a program called The God Slot, which allowed me. I loved that, the challenge of that, because it was, you know, in news, if you're doing an interview, it's 2-3 minutes max. 5 minutes on budget night with the Taoiseach. That's as long as it ever gets, unless you're doing one of those rolling, you know, breaking news days. But the God Slot allowed me to read books and interview people about them, and, you know, conduct debates about various topics. And so it allowed me to get my teeth into things more. So I really enjoyed that. I found that quite challenging.
Very impressive people.
I met some very impressive people. Yeah.
For instance, can you think of anybody?
Oh, the one that stands out for me is Tommy Reichenthal.
Oh,
the Holocaust survivor.
Everybody who's met Tommy would feel the same.
Sure.
Isn't he the most precious human being?
He's just the most gorgeous. And for people who don't know, he was in Bergen-Belsen as a child and wrote a book about it, and didn't for years, said nothing, told nobody, came to Ireland, you know, was married, everything, had never said a word, and saw something on the Late Late Show one night, I think, and, you know, started to get upset, and suddenly all this started coming out. So then he wrote a book. I gather he's now done a children's version of that book.
Yes.
And I think it should
And he's terrific with kids. We had him down at our house last year with the 75 local kids in our garden with little trowels, planting little bulbs that were going to grow in honour of the children who died during the Holocaust, and Tommy was there. What a gent.
He should be. It should be required reading.
I don't think for all that he's a good age now, but there's a childish face to him. He is a gorgeous. He's a little boy's face still.
I know. Yeah.
The thing that impressed me most about him, Mary, is that there is not a trace of bitterness in the man.
Oh no!
And I absolutely couldn't get over that. No. I'd be bitter, wouldn't you? You know.
But
also reading the book, what fascinated me was, and it's our lack of understanding and our lack of knowledge, this just didn't happen overnight. This was building up for years. He probably didn't even realise it because he was a child. But his grandparents and his parents' business had been taken away from them, and they were working, like they were undermining them at every turn. It didn't just happen overnight. It had been going on for years. And I think he was only 9 or something when he went to Bergen-Belsen. But then at the end of it, I asked him, was there one outstanding memory or something like that? And he suddenly stopped and he got emotional and he said, it was the silence. There were no birds.
No birds.
And that kind of blew me away as well. Then I ended up presenting him with the People of the Year award a couple of years later. Really? Do you remember that? You and I were there. Right. Anne was supposed to do it actually, and she was sick, and I suddenly got the call. And everybody was panicky. It's this guy called Tommy Wright. I said, it's okay. I know him. We know each other. It'll be fine. And it was.
Well, it was, because you and he spoke beautifully on the stage.
Yeah.
It was very nice. Yeah. Those are important moments.
Have you any other behind the scenes kind of moments that when you sit down to reflect, and whenever you're writing your memoirs, they'll be the stories that'll feed the drama?
I think about the run up, and you'd appreciate the run up to the Good Friday Agreement. That was, for me, that was kind of, Brian Dobson used to do all these big rolling bulletins. So this was my first time where I was kind of centrally involved in a story like that. Brian was in Belfast and I was in Dublin. And we were on the air live a couple of hours. And then the Bosnian War was going on at the same time. You'd have to flip then and interview Paul Cunningham. But just that, will we get it across the line? Will it get across the line? David Davenport was our Northern editor. He was fantastic at that time and called it right, because he won an award subsequently. He called it the whole way along. Bertie coming back down for his mother's funeral, all that kind of thing, and going back up and, oh, no more trouble, David Trimble and Mo Molan and all the rest of it. And then eventually Good Friday, and they got it across the line. I was actually travelling down the country. I remember Cormac was asleep in the back of the car, and I pulled into the side of the road to hear the two speeches, Bertie Ahern and Tony Blair coming out.
You would have had to track what George Mitchell said, what Clinton said, what Tony Blair was saying, and then, of course, all the drama within the Ulster Unionist Party.
Yeah. That's one of the things that Anne and I talk about being retired, is that sense that you don't feel you have to be on top of everything all the time. It doesn't matter if you're away for a weekend and you miss the newspapers. You don't have to read them all on Sunday night when you get back in advance of Monday.
Yeah. Eileen, this podcast grew out of an affection for the Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart podcast. How do you think we compare?
So far, so good.
Oh, gosh.
I liked the Jarlath Burns one, obviously.
But Jarlath's a real credit to the GAA now, isn't he?
He's great.
Superb. He is superb.
Yeah.
He'd be like your dad, compendious knowledge
actually,
of every corner.
I had never met him until the night of your launch. And I introduced myself to him. He said, oh my God. He said, I was such a fan of your father's. And my mother says it was mutual. There was great mutual affection between them.
Yeah, that's good to know.
It was nice to know that.
That's good to know.
And the GAA, okay, your dad was very influential, but your family just celebrates GAA always. I've been in Eileen's house, Mary, for lunch on All Ireland Sunday, and there'd be cupcakes. They'll have to be blue, and they'd have the Dublin
colours,
Dublin crest on them, and everything. The serviettes are blue. Everything is blue. It's an amazing.
Yeah,
way
we go to town. We
life.
keep buying bits, and because my house is the closest to Croke Park of us, so the gathering tends to be in my house for brunch. Yes.
And what about your mum? She's still into the GAA.
Oh, she is. Yeah, she is absolutely. Yeah, yeah. She's from Westmeath now, so she doesn't get to celebrate too often. Yes. Though I do remember the year they won the Leinster final. That was great. So I know a lot of my cousins were up, and we brought the party back to my house that night. And in fact, Colin Murray was there as well, because he was also from Westmeath.
Yeah, very nice.
There's a tie-in with you. He came back, and he had got a bottle of champagne from you for something, and he said, "I'm going down to get that bottle of champagne now. It's worth celebrating."
Because he was a neighbour, wasn't
Mary
he?
McAleese now I'm talking to, rather than Mary Kennedy. I don't know what it was, but you were tied in there somewhere.
Oh, I'll have to try and revive my memory of that. It was Colm had the champagne, or your dad?
Colm.
Was Colm had it?
Yeah.
Colm had it. Yeah. I could very well have been. I was very fond of Colm. Where everybody was.
Everybody was.
Everybody was. What a gorgeous guy.
He was my first supervisor when I was an announcer. Now that in itself, Colin Murray supervisor, don't really go together.
I'd say he was an old softy.
So, my second duty, I think, so it would have been my first full shift, was a Sunday morning, and he was supervising me, the early shift on a Sunday morning, and he lived in an apartment in Clontarf at the time. He was still single. He wasn't married yet. And of course I wanted to be in like a half an hour beforehand to go through my papers and make sure everything was right. The station was opening at 6:30, so 5:30, 20 to 6, 5:45, 10 to 6, still no sign of Colm. The next thing, the taxi driver arrives, and he says, "I've just woken him up, so he told me to come down for you and go back for him."
Oh, no.
But Eileen, I can remember when I was working in the newsroom, and I was presenting the news, say, at 6 o'clock on a Saturday, the 6 o'clock bulletin. And at the opening, Colin would come in for the opening shots, and then he would disappear again, and he would literally come in with about 10 seconds to go to the sports bulletin. I can remember one Saturday he came in, and I don't know why, but the chair wasn't there. So he actually just hunched over the desk, and like squatting over the desk, and gave the sports results.
I don't know how many times they'd
Great
make sure
character.
that we, the newscasters, had the sports scripts as well, because you just
in
would think
case.
he's not going to show, you know, but he always made it.
Always
in
made
fairness.
it. Always made it. Last minute. Lastminute.com.
Lastminute.com, yeah.
But actually, you were doing live television. Like, were there days when it did all go completely pear-shaped on you?
Not too well. There were a couple of times, I suppose. And coming back to something we said earlier about the autocue going haywire on you, there was one night a couple of years before I retired where the studio sat down, because it's now all digital and everything and unmanned, as we said. And the editor that was on that night, in fairness, was a bit of a greenie, but she did really well, because what we need in a situation like that is just somebody to make a decision. I'll do whatever you want me to do, but just tell me what to do. And the decision was, do we reboot? Stay stuck and reboot, or leg it around to that unmanned studio that I was talking about earlier, which was the decision. So we legged it around to that unmanned studio, but that's the one where you have to work the autocue yourself, and nobody turned it on, so I couldn't.
You'd read the hard
sheets.
You need your sheets
hard
then.
copies.
Yeah. Adrenaline takes over though, because you still want to get it out and you want it to be as good as it can possibly be. And I suppose because when we were young ones doing headlines in that studio, we never had autocue anyway. So I'd be more able and easier to read a script than some of my contemporary colleagues who've always had autocue. We'd be more trained to it, wouldn't we?
Eileen, as well as all the work in television, you've great interest in the arts, and perhaps that's how you and your husband, Macdara O'Faherty, connected, because he's an actor.
He's an actor.
Did I read that you met at a goat fair? Could that possibly be right?
No, well, yes and no. So, but yes. So I knew him, obviously. He was an Abbey actor. David Hanley is the common denominator here. David Hanley was a friend of both. And so I would have seen him in Nesbitt's, Dohoney and Nesbitt's, when we were young, free and single. That's where we used to hang out. And I would have seen him there. And then I went to a goat fair in Foxford in County Mayo. And
what brought you to a goat fair? Do you mind me asking?
JJ O'Hara asked me to come down and open the goat fair. I was
at the Mayo opening the goat fair.
Yeah,
right.
I was at the Mayo Person of the Year, and JJ O'Hara came over and said, who's since dead, God be good to him, will you come down and open the goat fair? And simultaneously there was an F.R. Higgins poetry weekend going on. So when I arrived in Foxford, I was greeted by somebody who was keeping a space for me in the car park and said, there's a colleague of yours here. And I said, oh yeah, who? And they said David Hanley and his partner, Yvonne, at the time. And they have a friend with them, Macdara O'Faherty. And I said, oh, okay. And I kind of half know him. So that's...
And do you think was David trying to set you up?
I think so, yeah, but he didn't think it would last. He often said subsequently.
And there you are. How many years are you married now?
How many years am I married? 31 this year.
My goodness. And he's from Inishmaan, the
He's
Aran
from
Islands.
Inishmaan and the Aran Islands.
So there's that connection as well. Do you get over from time to time?
We do, yeah. I haven't been there, actually. I haven't been there for a while. Because Macdara is working so much in Galway, when he's off, he tends to want to come back to Dublin. So, I haven't been to the island for a while.
It's tough. So he's working in Galway on Ross Naroon. You're here. Was it always like that?
Always like that, yeah. 6 months on and 6 months off. But we got used to it. I mean, you get used to whatever it is, you know.
And you're good on your own, you say.
I am good on my own, yeah.
But he must be good on his own too. I mean, does he cook for himself?
He does, yes, he does, yes.
So that means when he goes back to Dublin, would he cook a nice breakfast for you now?
No, not a breakfast, because he stayed, because he's been an actor all his life, he's a night owl. So he stays up later, and therefore he gets up later when he's at home, when he's not working. So breakfast, no, but he's been well able to cook a dinner now, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant.
And classical music is a huge pastime. I'm going to make that again. And classical music is a huge passion for you, Eileen.
I love music. I love all kinds of music, really. Probably, maybe jazz might be, that kind of unstructured jazz. I'm a Taurian. I demand a beginning, a middle, and an end. So yes, the jazz that goes off, I'm not wild about that. But everything else, I absolutely love. Yeah.
What kind of things would you go to with Macdara now? Because it's a busman's holiday for him to go to the theatre
Indeed. So no matter what I suggest, it's usually, no, I've seen it, or I've been in it, or I've been whatever. But it depends. I mean, if there's a new play coming, we'll. Now, he's not a great man to go to formal things like that, or concerts and that now. I remember bringing him to a Brian Ferry concert in the RDS once, and he was the only person who stayed in his seat. Everybody else was up on the floor. So he doesn't like that kind of formal thing, you know. So I tend not, we go to the theatre together the odd time, but concerts and that I tend, now maybe something like, I think actually the last one we were at was, the traditional, what the name of them, and the guy, Dennis Cahill, you know, what are they called?
The Martin
yes, the Gloaming.
Yeah.
I think that's the last time we were in the concert all together. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he chose the right one, so to go to, didn't he?
And we went to Moving Hearts, actually, in when they were in Bord Gosh the last time, too.
And you do a lot of work with the orchestras, don't you?
I did over the years, yeah. I presented the first ever series of lunchtime concerts from the concert hall.
That was a nice gig.
In 1982, I think it was a pound in. It was a whole new initiative. It was a whole new idea. Johnny Devlin, the late great Johnny Devlin, asked me to do them. And that was lovely, yeah.
And you're still doing that kind of work? Because I know
do
you
the
were in the
one,
Helix recently.
I did the Messiah. Yeah.
Was that with the Tallaght Choral Society?
It was for the celebrating 800 years of the Dominicans in Ireland.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, that was lovely. And actually, it's so rare that you get to hear the whole Messiah. I mean, it was the same weekend as the 13th. It was on the 14th of April. You know, the Fishamble Street, the one they do in the street. But that's, I mean, and I went into that on the Saturday as well. That's highlights kind of, but you very rarely get the whole 2.5 hours of it. So it was just amazing. And they were accompanied by the Irish Choral Sinfonia, which I didn't even know existed, which is some of the finest freelance musicians in the country who, for that specific purpose, to accompany choral societies and choirs. And brilliant, like David Agnew. I met David Agnew, he's in it, and a couple of people like that playing.
So what is retirement now? What does it mean to you now?
This one warned me that, you know, the phone won't stop for 6 months. Well, it hasn't really stopped at all. And then my last few months have just been crazy altogether with the Dancing with the Stars. So I'm still kind of picking up the pieces from that. And I have a few bits on, but I don't want to get too busy either, because that defeats the purpose. And I want to be able to, say, hop on a plane and go over to Barcelona if I fancy a weekend, or go wherever. My sister has a place in the West. I go down there a bit, and, you know.
Tell me about Dancing with the Stars, because I've obviously watched both of you. My husband is addicted to Dancing with the Stars, and it's amazing because he doesn't dance. It's one of the small flaws in an otherwise perfect marriage, that I am married to a man who doesn't dance. I love the set dancing, but that terrifies the life out of him. No, he just reached for the golf clubs. Goodbye. But I'm amazed at the two of you saying yes to that, because I think that's an ordeal, isn't it? But is it an ordeal that's worthwhile?
Oh, it's absolutely.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
Now, you took a little bit of convincing.
I was just afraid I wouldn't be able for it, because I have rheumatoid arthritis. So I was just afraid, and I didn't want to make an idiot of myself either. So, but around the time, they allowed me to tell Mary. They said, go and talk to Mary. But because you were lip sealed, you weren't allowed to tell anybody else. So I spoke to Mary, and Mary said, why wouldn't you? And I said, oh yeah, I mean, my heart is saying yes, but my head is saying maybe not. And then as it happened, I had an appointment with the rheumatologist, and I told him. And he was all excited. He reacted really well, for which I will be forever grateful. And he said, get back up there. And he pulled and he pushed and all the rest of it. And he said, I was diagnosed quite early. And he said, the wonderful thing about you is we have it under control. And he said, there's no joint damage. So he said, I'm happy to sign off. And he said, you may get a flare up, which I do every now and again. If I do too much or if I do too little, I can seize up, you know. And he said, that may well happen. But he said, I'm not worried about you doing damage. So I said, okay, that's all I need then, if, you know.
Well, that was a big change now in your life, going from newscasting, you know, to Dancing with the Stars. And you loved it, didn't you?
I loved every minute of it. Well, I decided if I was going to do it in the same way that you did, go for it. Like, there's no point in half doing it. You know,
do you enjoy all the costumes, though? Because, I mean, in studio, you have to wear it. It could be quite sober. But did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it.
And the different hairstyles.
Yeah.
You were famous for your hairstyle.
It became a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Week 2, cha-cha, I was just so scared of the cha-cha. I remember talking to you about it. I just couldn't get into it so fast. And it was only the second week. And, you know, the muscle memory really hadn't kicked in at that point. I just could not run it. And if you stop to think about it, it was just so fast, you'd miss the next. If you stopped to think about one step, you'd miss the next one. Oh, anything to distract from my feet. You know, what am I going to do here? And we were out to lunch, a couple of us on the Wednesday, and somebody said, they were telling me to, because I was dancing to a J-Lo song, Let's Get Loud. And they were all, you know, have to find your inner J-Lo and Jenny from the Block. What? I didn't even know what they were talking about. Jenny from the Block? I'd never heard of it. So anyway, this was all going on. So I thought maybe, okay, ponytail, what'll I do about this? And who will I get on to? So somebody said, Adam, get on to Adam, one of the producers. So I emailed Adam, and Adam said, your wishes are command. So then poor Carol Ann, in the hairdress, in hair and makeup, Carol Ann got a phone call at 5 o'clock, I think, on the Friday evening, get a ponytail. She nearly had a heart attack. So I went into her. My hair is incredibly fine, and she was kind of worried that it wouldn't hold, that it just wouldn't hold. Be nothing worse if it went flying in the middle of the cha-cha-cha. But anyway, we said, let's try it.
That's what I remember. I remember the ponytail so well.
Let's try it for the rehearsal on the Saturday. We do a dress rehearsal. And I said, fine. And I said, if you say no, if you say it's too risky, I'll be guided by you. So that's what we did. And it worked. And then it became a thing. She had to do something different with me every week.
Yeah.
You know,
it was your statement, Eileen.
The Mail on Sunday, one Sunday, had about 4 or 5 different pictures of me with 4 or 5 different hairstyles. So it just became a thing then, you know. But it was great fun. Oh, yeah.
What was your favourite part of it?
The Sunday. I always loved the Sunday. We were a great bunch. Now, we got on very well. I know you did too. You're still quite friendly with some of your people.
Experience.
It is, yeah. But some years, I think there have been maybe not, because, you know, they kept saying, oh, you're a really good gang. But we were saying, and you probably say that to everybody. But I gather, you know, this year we were particularly, and we were as close at the end as we were at the beginning, if not closer. And when we came back, you're brought back for the final.
That's right.
And now, Mary, you didn't have that because it was COVID year. But the finalists were all, oh, God, it's great to have you back. Like, it feels like week 1 all over again, you know. So, yeah, we had great crack among ourselves and up in the green room and that for the few minutes that you would get if you weren't in hair or makeup or on the dance floor.
And isn't that an important part of it as well? That there is a kind of an intergenerational, you know, experience between the people who take part. Some are very, very young. Then there's people who are older, and then there's people who are older again. I think that's really, really important.
It is. I got on particularly well with Laura Fox from 2FM, and she's only half my age. And then somebody like Davy Russell, a really great character, but I learned so much from Davy. Davy was talking about the fodder crisis before anybody was talking about it. And he was ringing up and trying to get fodder for his horses, and some fella, and he said, I have fodder, but he said, it won't do you. And I said to Davy, why? And he said, because it's not good fodder and the horses won't eat it. The horses are very picky. Well, who knew?
What about, never mind the rehearsals, what about the dress fittings? How does all that happen?
You go into town, into the girls, and they're set up in town there, and you go in and you have it. Now, I'm happy to say that as we progress, they used to have to take the dresses in when they arrived. And the trick now is to keep that weight off now that it's over. But yeah, you'd go in, and a couple of times it changed. You know, I started out the week thinking I was wearing something, and by the end of the week, you'd be wearing something completely different. But I remember my first one, which was emerald green, big, full of the weight of it and the skirts, and it was a big, huge, I was doing the American Smooth, so I had this big, huge skirt thing. And I just remember the first time I danced in it, which would have been on the Saturday of the weekend for the dress rehearsal. I said to Robert, hold on, wait for me, because I'm a half a beat behind you now. The dress has to come with me. You just have to, it takes time to get used to them. They're so heavy, doesn't it?
Ah, that's true, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there any dress that you looked at and you said, I'm just not wearing that. I am absolutely not wearing that. My mother will have a fit.
Yeah, no, not really, no. There was one that arrived very late and I felt I was absolutely bet into it, but it was too late to do anything about it at the time. Some of them, they got held up in England and stuff like that. No, the only thing that I said no to was, come on, Eileen.
Go away.
They wanted me to dance to that the very first week, and I said, "Oh no, I hate it. I absolutely hate it." I might have done it later into it. I might have had a different attitude.
Is that because you've had so much experience of it being thrown at you?
But it's not a nice song. I just hate it.
But you've no trouble dancing to Proud Mary.
No.
Landed me in it.
Yeah, you dedicated it to Mary.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Proud Mary.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, wonderful experience, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. You're so far outside your comfort zone. Like, it's good for you on so many levels, you know. Building the relationship with your dance partner, and I mean, you know, God love them, what they have to put up with us. You know,
they're athletes.
They're athletes,
yeah.
And pros. They're complete pros, aren't they?
Yeah. So, and just an insight into their world.
Did anything you hear, the judges who are, you know, right? Sometimes, mostly kind, but not always. Did you, when you were listening to them, were you worried about what they were saying? Did they bother you? That
was the one thing you were told from the beginning. Don't mind them. Basically, they have a job to do, and they're all lovely. Like, individually, they're all lovely. They're all very nice people.
But they still have to be just a little bit.
So yeah, there
edgy.
There was. I think Robert gave out to them one night because we've got the same score 3 weeks in a row or something like that, and we just kind of felt maybe it wasn't appreciating the way the dances were getting a bit more complicated and all that kind of thing. So we were just, you know, a bit off one of the nights. But anyway, that's all.
What about your mummy? Was she watching?
She came the first week. The girls brought her. My sisters brought her over. So she loved all that. So then she was able to dine out on it then for the rest of it. You know? So, but they had watch parties in my sister's or in Mammy's, or my sister came home from America. I know many times she came home. She was afraid she'd miss anything. And they all got, my sister Myra said, bar getting out on the dance floor with you, I don't think I could have done any more. You know, they were totally invested.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And did Cormac come home?
He did. He got home week 5. I think himself and Ellen came,
Brilliant.
And then Matt Dara came with him and Ellen's mum, yeah.
So how would you describe your life now, Eileen, that you've experienced all this change? You were working very hard. You are now retired. Your son is grown up and has moved away.
It's still busy, you know. I'd be very rare, and even if I look at a diary and say, okay, now I'm busy this week, next week I'm not busy, but by the time Friday comes, it'll be filling up again. You know, it'll be busy again. As I say, I'm now getting to the point where I'm going to have to start saying no, because I just don't want to be too busy. I think I'll tell you something too about Dancing with the Stars, Mary McAleese. I haven't laughed as much in years. Seriously, I laughed. Now, my Robert, as I say, Robert is a fantastic character, and it was just funny, and we had great fun, and some of the other dancers and we just laughed a lot. And I've decided I am no longer surrounding myself with negativity and people who are whinging at me and moaning at me, and that's one thing I took away from it. I've enough of it now. I've had to put up with it for years, and I don't have to put up with it anymore.
That's a lovely life lesson.
It is, you know.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things that we discovered too. You know, the group of us who go away in the Camaneros, that we have a laugh. We do have a laugh. And in that group, just like you, I mean, there are people with all sorts of sadnesses and griefs, but they don't carry them. They don't carry them in front of them. Mm-hmm. They carry them inwardly. They know that we're with them. They know that we support them, and that we want some way or another to help heal each other and to help. And a laugh is the best medicine, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A laugh is the best medicine. It's great to hear you say that, actually. Yeah.
Before we finish, will you explain to us ham and eggs?
What? Ham and eggs?
So the infamous Rory O'Connor was a deputy head of news in RT, head of television news, and he was Kerryman. And I was petrified of that man when I was a young one, when I started, but I outgrew that. And anyway, he was talking to Anne one day, and he said somebody told him that they heard a conversation on a bus, 2 women, you know, what do they say to each other at the end of the bulletin? And of course we comment. If the two of us were myself and Anne at the time, presenting the 9 o'clock, we'd be commenting on what we've just watched, the same as you would at home, sitting watching it. And the other one said, they're told what to say. They say ham and eggs, ham and eggs, ham and eggs. So we said, let's do it for the crack.
You did
so
not.
we did it one night. We just went ham and eggs, ham and eggs, ham and eggs.
Did you keep a straight face?
And did anybody catch on?
I don't know. We said, let all the lip readers go now. See how smart they are.
Well, I think obviously the sense of fun and the laughs were obviously part of life even before Dancing with the Stars. We ask this of everybody, Eileen, and you're not going to escape the question. If there's one thing you could change, be it about yourself or just generally speaking, what would that be?
Okay, so I've obviously thought about this because I've heard you asking other people. I think, and Mary Kennedy, I have a Parry match for you. This is an old tradition that goes back.
Oh, thank you.
If either of us is in France, we bring the other one back, the Parry match.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And there's an interview with an actress who has now become a writer, and she's talking about the coarsening of public debate and language and all that kind of thing. And that's something that I'm not saying that it's only since Twitter that politicians get a hard time or that television presenters get a hard time, because we used to get anonymous letters on jotter paper, but it definitely has got, the keyboard heroes who are all anonymous, and it's okay. It seems to be permissible to say whatever to people and not have any consequences. And I don't know where that's going to end. So I'd love to roll that back and just have a bit of respect.
I think graciousness.
Respect is gone. Nobody respects anyone or anything anymore. So I think I would kind of change that if I could roll it back. And I'm just, will there be something that'll push it maybe over the edge or whatever that might cause people to step back a bit? But I don't know. I mean, it obviously started, a lot of it in America, so you just don't know where it's going to end up. Personally, I don't think I might have regretted some decisions. I might have done things a bit differently, but if you push me, and I don't think I would change anything, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't have all the experience that I had.
Yeah.
So probably not.
And that's it for another episode of Changing Times.
Thank you, as always, to our producer, Enda Grace.
And to our researcher, Anne-Marie Staunton.
And we cannot forget to say thank you to Kildare County Council for their very valuable support.
Remember to subscribe so that you can be able to get more enlightening conversations and entertaining conversations on Changing Times.
So until next time, when we'll be back here in lovely Allenwood in County Kildare, farewell for now.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.